said I'd take care of you. I'll do the best I can do, and,
You know what that bill, what that bill was, because it could have been.
It was a bill for $130 for McDonald Engineering. And when I talked to the town clerk about it, she said she didn't know anything about it, just was told to send me a bill. And when I called her to find out what it was, she said something about a meeting I had that I never had. So that's when I contacted this gentleman here to find out what was going on, because the first contact in 9 months from the town was a bill. No phone calls, no reaction, no nothing. And so that's where I contacted him 2 weeks ago, and this is where we're at right now. And this is my first time talking with anybody about it. So nothing's been approached to me about it. I don't know what you're thinking and doing, but I'm here to try to expand and try to help my business and go forward with it. We're just looking for the steps to do that at this point.
what type of business?
I'm a meat processor. I process meat for local farmers.
Almost building there?
Yes. Yeah,
We brought this, I brought it up in February, that he asked me about it, and I said, contact him.
and
And I talked to George about it.
so this is where we're at now. We're just coming. I just want to. I am serious about wanting to do this. I'm willing to do just about what it needs to get done to do it. Again, I already have approval from the town of Gillen to expand. That was a lengthy and long process itself. And for me to do to finish the project, I really need to add the additional water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an issue with water systems now. My business is fine the way it is, but it won't grow with what I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking to grow and expand and help all the local farmers out. So,
Yeah, so, again, like I said last week, we have contacted Mike. Mike's putting together, a contract here, some language we need to, dot some i's, cross some t's. We probably need to, again, get some final data from you, and then we should be almost ready to go.
Yeah, there are things that I had asked Doug, and I guess you're not talking directly to Doug Cole of McDonald Engineering.
not at all. No.
So that there are, for these outside of district connections, there's generally a connection fee. We just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what, how the charges would be billed when you're connected to the water, because there's two parts to the water bills. One, that's the actual use charge, or based on the amount of water used. You'd have a standard water meter with that. And the other is debt service charge, when there's debt in the water district. It's shared by all of the users in the district. And then, as I think I said, there's a one-time connection fee. So I think you should understand what all of those things are, getting into it. And then obviously the connection costs, because I get the exact distance. I think that Doug said it might be 600 feet that your lateral would have to go to connect to the main.
Okay.
So, you would take that into consideration. I don't know if you got a cost estimate on, what that would be.
I have nothing, because I've been just waiting on information from you folks, because that's what I was waiting for, the next step. I asked George Meads, what can I do? I had 2 meetings with him, and I said, listen, I don't want to have no more meetings. I want something in writing. I need something that we can go and do. And he said, no problem. And that was in October. And I called once a month, and this last month, it was about 3 weeks ago when I called him, and he got really upset and started yelling at me about the whole situation. And I'm like, I don't think I'm really bothering anyone or pressuring anyone. I'm calling once a month.
Okay,
trying,
so,
trying to get this done,
I
so.
understand your frustration, sir.
So, but I don't have nothing in writing on what you're saying is cost, so there's no way I can prepare. This is all I'm trying to get was this information to me so that we can do this. So I understand there's cost, but I really need something in writing other than,
I believe that now, is there an email address here?
I don't think you have an email. Do you have email?
yes, I do.
All right.
That we can,
You wanna write it down? If you get a chance, or unless you got a business card or something.
Sure, no, I can write it down.
The short story is gonna be, you know, pretty much you can absorb all the costs. Kind of.
Well, as long, if I can get an estimate of what these costs are and what we
Well,
gotta
can
do.
that, or you can get your own, I guess what Mike's saying.
Yeah,
well,
well,
the cost that we would, the standard cost, we'll show you exactly what those are. And then as far as the actual, you know, construction, you know, or connection, that Doug probably can give you an estimate of what that would be.
do I have to, can I use a private contractor to do that, or I have to use one of the town?
If it's a lateral connection, you can use a private contractor,
Okay,
because we won't own the lateral, you own the lateral.
all right.
And then it'll be, like I say, you're a district user, so everything will be 1.5 times.
Right,
Okay.
right, but, like I said, I mean, if, all I'm, you know, if I could just, get this information all to me, that I could look it over, because I've come to the town a couple times, and all we did was talk, and I couldn't get nothing in writing.
So we made leaps and bounds here in the last 5 days. We're that close to being done here. So Mike is gonna finish up his stuff. He'll email you. I got your phone number, so I'll put this down. Mike can, you know, jot it down as necessary. And we think we get him something by Monday or so.
Yeah.
So by Monday, we should have a document to you.
All right, and then he'll give me instructions to go.
Right. And
Through it
it'll tell you
all.
what the steps are
All right.
from that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for, that's all.
Yeah, the suggestion is probably gonna be is, you know, obviously you want your attorney to look at it,
Yeah.
you know, some things without saying, I guess. But, so that's how close I you know, I wanted you to come in and talk to us, so Mike's jumped on it, you know, Doug Cole's jumped on it, we're working on it. And it looks like we're like 3 days away from giving you a document and saying, this is it, here's where we are.
I missed what you said was the probable water usage.
About 200 gallons a
200
day.
gallons.
That's approximately, it's only gonna be for, it's for one room. It's not for the whole building, just for the room. I'm putting in a smokehouse and cooking room, to do, do bacons and hams, to finish my customers' products, where they're leaving to go somewhere else to do right at this point, and that stuff, so it'd be just for that.
Well, you know, whatever happened in the back, you know, on the miscommunication or whatever it was, you know, we're past it. We'll get you this stuff real quick and help you with the steps. You got my number, right?
Yeah.
We're a phone call away, my friend, so we can move this along pretty quick, hopefully.
All right.
Anything else for the town board, or Mike, you have anything
I
else?
think I've got what I need now.
All right, sir?
All right.
Okay.
Well, we'll be hearing from you all soon.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Take
thank
care
you.
of it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so for the folks, we had a little delay, so we kind of went over some miscellaneous stuff. So we're gonna formally open the meeting up now. We've already done the pledge of allegiance for the folks on Time Warner. And then we had a customer who come in, just explain where we are. That we have a customer or a possible customer from Gildan who wants to hook up to our water. So that was a discussion. And then we had a further discussion with Tim Bishop and Joe, who had mounted a monitor on out in the hallway, which we hope to start showing the solar savings and solar usage, along with the scrolling banner to show the town's homepage and upcoming events and calendars and stuff. But the heavy part's done. So Tim's just working through, you know, what we're gonna post on it and how long it scrolls and how many times, et cetera. So at this point, we'll formally reopen, well, it's not reopen, but move to business. So I'm gonna open up for a quick, or not quick, I guess, privileges of the floor at, I can't see, it's 7:25. Real quick on the privileges of the floor, at every scheduled town board meeting, the public shall have the right to address the town board during a portion of the meeting to be referred to as privileges of the floor, which shall take place after the reports of the town departments and supervisor. Members of the public wishing to speak during privileges of the floor may sign a sheet before the commencement of the town board meeting indicating his or her name, address, and proposed topic. Sign-in sheet will dictate the order in which the persons are recognized to speak and will assure the town clerk has the correct spelling of their name and addresses for the minutes. Members of the public to restrict their comments to items of town business or to observe proper decorum while addressing the town board. Persons who become unruly, who use inappropriate language, or who persist in speaking on items not related to town business may be ruled out of order. Although there is no official time constraint, speakers may address one or more items in their comments. They should be considerate of others and try to limit the remarks to no more than 5 minutes so that all interested members of the public will have the opportunity to be heard. So I'll open the floor up for public comment, or privileges of the floor. No comments?
I can comment on.
Hello?
Good evening, Linda Parker Kusick. I live at 444 Skyline Drive. And I'm also the treasurer of the Civic and Historic Committee. And I'm just a little disappointed that we didn't have a little better communication with regards to the pesticides that were applied to the grounds here at the town hall. Because we have been, as a group, we've been physically here and putting in our time planting some of our own flowers and plants that we've had from our own properties that we brought in to make the town look a little more appealing. But there also is a consideration as far as the toxicity of these chemicals that have been placed on the mulch and around these plants. So I just wanted to make this heard. I know that this was also mentioned in our meeting that we had last night. Some of the members are rather upset about it. So as I said, I just wish we had all kind of had a little bit better communication with regard to knowing that this was going to happen because of further, you know, weeding and planting things in the gardens and around the facilities, and so that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Additional comments? All right, I'm gonna close privileges of the floor at 7:28. We have a guest that I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce. You know, some of us probably remember her. Actually, did you come out the first time? I don't know. It was
Lorianne Shura, I believe.
Lauren, the salesperson. But Claudia works with General Code. She's our project engineer.
Manager.
Project editor for General Code. So again, I want to, you know, make sure that we're as open and as transparent and take as much time as we need to explain to everybody who's got questions on General Code, the depth, the scope, the process, et cetera. There's, again, continues to be, in my opinion, some confusion about maybe not confusion, maybe just, maybe not clarity or a complete understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here. So, you know, we asked Claudia to come in from Rochester to, you know, again, present a little bit. She put together a package here. And what we've also done, and it's in the agenda, but we listed out, you know, what's been done with E-code to date. Actually, we're done, but this is what the actions were on some of these chapters. And so I just want to again say, you know, ask Claudia to kind of go through a little bit of it. She has a soft copy, which I will ask the webmaster to, a copy of this presentation, plus the spreadsheet, to put up on the live, you know, not live link, that's what my work, up on the town's website. Again, it's all about transparency, it's about communication, it's about taking the time, as much time as we can, to explain to everybody that there's nothing illegal going on, there's no backdoor deals going on, there's nothing behind the curtains, there's nothing. This is all as open as I can possibly make it. And again, Claudia, thank you for driving the 3 hours in to help us here again with general code. And you know, Claudia will take, you know, whatever questions we want to talk about, you know, go through the process. You know, I think Mike's already reached out to associations of town, the State Department, so Mike's got more data to work on. I think there was a little bit of, you know, again, miscommunication on some of the earlier fact statements when we were there. So, welcome.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Claudia Zook. I'm from General Code in Rochester, New York, and our business is codification, something that I know you will hear once in your lifetime. I do this every day, so please feel free, as I briefly go through these materials, to stop me, ask me questions, ask for clarification. I live this, so it's very familiar to me, but I completely understand that it might be a foreign language to some of you. And just for a little background to where we are in the project, I think it was in December 2012, the town signed a contract with General Code to take all of its laws, which were separate pieces of paper and in different files and different drawers, and create a code out of it. And a code is just a collection of all your laws organized in a fashion so that it's easy to access. Like Mike said, we want accessibility and transparency and accountability, and a code book helps provide that. It's like state law. The legislature adopts laws and they don't just sit in a box. They become part of the codified version of the state law, which is divided into town law, village law, agriculture and markets law. Your code is going to be organized into chapters by subject matter. And that was the first part of the project. We presented, we reviewed all of your existing laws, and we presented a proposed table of contents. This is the organization that we think your code should have. The town approved that. Then we took all your laws and we created a rough draft of your code book in chapters, organized it into sections and subsections, so that everything is consistent, easy to access, so that you as a town board and citizens at the end of the project will be able to know what your current law is and be able to, either in a printed copy, which you will get, or in the online e-code version, be able to access that law and see exactly, okay, where can I put my fence? What do I do when my neighbor's dog is barking and making noise? How do I find out what the town's law is on those subjects? So what I'd like to do is just briefly go through this code project summary that I put together. Hopefully it will answer some questions, see where we are in the process, and what's left. I'd like to thank you too for the work that you've put into the project already. This is tremendous. It shows me how much work you've put. You've done all the hard work. There's just a few steps left, and actually now the ball is in our court to take the work that you've done and move on to the next step. But you've done a really good job of staying on schedule and doing the hard work. So if we look at page 3, this goes through the project steps that the town has completed. You You've approved the proposed organization. You've reviewed the manuscript, which is that rough draft I mentioned, and the editorial and legal analysis. That was the document that we provided that had a lot of questions. We looked at the law and based at your existing laws and based on our experience with other New York municipalities. And we've been in business since 1964. So we've seen a lot of what's going on in our state.
Could I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
So Claudia actually only produced like 9 of these, so I'm willing to share mine, and there's 2 more
There-
up here.
2 more.
I mean, I can look over Mike's shoulder.
I have a question. So that, what you have is totally different what this is in the minutes, correct?
It's not told, they're connected.
Okay, so you prepared this or did Mike Joyce prepare this?
That I believe Heather prepared, right?
Right,
You
Yes.
prepared that, Mr. Joyce?
correct.
Okay.
No,
The
no,
town-
I'm sorry, no, I did not.
Oh.
Heather did. I just
Okay,
cut
so
and
it's
pasted.
interpretation of what the town has done so far.
What?
It's an interpretation of what the town has done so far, not what Ms.
It's not an
Claudia.
interpretation,
Okay, well, I just wanted to be sure that this isn't Claudia's work that we're looking at.
correct, it's
Okay.
Heather's.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody wants a copy.
Good. I have 2 copies up here if anyone would like to look at one.
Um,
So the second step of the process, we're on page 3, was that editorial and legal analysis. And it came in a workbook form and it had a variety of questions on each of your laws. And it was based on our comparison of your legislation with current state law and comparison of your law internally to make sure that it was consistent. That maybe in one chapter you said the maximum height of offense is 6 feet, and in another chapter you said the maximum height of offense is 8 feet. Well, there's an inconsistency there, so we would point that out, and then we turned all those questions over to the town, and you probably remember this process, a little painful, a lot of thought involved, to decide, well, what is the fence height? What do we want to do? Do we need to clarify our law so that it's clear and that it's correct and it matches up with state law? You did all that hard work. You sent me the answers, and that's where we are now. There are just a couple of remaining steps. The next step is for general code to incorporate all of those responses and all of your input into your existing law. We're going to do 2 things. We're going to read everything to make sure that the grammar, the punctuation, the spelling is all correct. I know that sounds very dull to you, but I love doing that. I'm a word girl, so I'm looking forward to that. And also to incorporate any clarifications into your laws, so that when the code is published, everything is incorporated into that. And then if you want to take a look at let's see, page 13. What I did in this packet is I took one of your laws and I jumped ahead and I did some editing. And on page 18, it's your public assembly chapter. It's the regulations that you have for any gatherings of 1,000 people or more. And that first version shows you the types of changes that are going to be made during the course of this project. And they come in 2 forms. They are changes to add commas and to correct spelling so that it's correct. And the second are the clarifications that the town requested so that your law is clear and there isn't anything redundant. For example, on page 14, you see you've added a definition of solid waste. When this chapter said that anybody applying for a permit has to make sure they have plans for dealing with solid waste. Well, what is solid waste? You've added a definition so that it's very clear. It makes the law easier to enforce and fewer questions. Some of the other changes, if you look down at the bottom of page 14, we've changed the phrase "this law" to "this chapter." That's just a reflection of the fact that this law is now a chapter in your code. Doesn't change the meaning, doesn't change the intent. It just makes the provisions clearer. And then if you look, following page 18, that's just an example of what that chapter is going to look like in the published code. That's just the clean version of it.
So the comparison now is you've kind of reformatted it, but not necessarily changed.
Right, we've provided structure and organization, but we haven't changed the meaning, we haven't changed the intent of your legislation at all. We don't interpret it. We take the law, because you live here in Princetown, you know your situation, we don't. We can provide suggestions based on our experience, but we totally rely on you to provide us with the information that's specific to your community. So we use your laws, absolutely.
So these I don't want to say reformatting, the structure of the way these chapters read, the updated ones, are these the same structure that you'll see at the state level? Or is it just
No,
more complex?
it's more, I'd like to say it's better because it's our product. No, it does have more structure. State law has a lot of unnumbered paragraphs, which tends to be confusing because you'll say, okay, section 1, the third paragraph down from the bottom, or something like that. Whereas in the case of your code, you can say, okay, section 18-4D1 applies here. So it's easy to just go right to that section without counting paragraphs.
But all the other townships you kind of work with, I mean, state law is obviously probably huge compared to ours. But the other townships you work with, it's all kind of structured exactly the same way?
Yes, it's a standard general code style, and we have 2,500 customers across the country, primarily New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, but this is our standard style, the structure that we've been using for 50 years now. And it's worked, and it's also easy to update, it's easy to reference, it's easy to add material, delete material, because even once you get your code book, the project is done, the code book is a living document, because circumstances change, state law changes, so you'll want to adopt amendments to it. And that's easy to do, and once the town board has adopted a local law, it can be submitted to general code, and two things happen. It goes up on E-code, and then it's incorporated into the law so that you always have a current reflection of what the law in Princetown is at any given point in time.
So just to reaffirm that, so even though we're probably 80%, 90% done with this, once we move forward with this, if a chapter in our code wants to change, we just go through the normal law changing practice or process, public hearing, et cetera, and then when it's complete, we just send you a copy, you codify it, send us a new chapter in the book, and put the new chapter up on the website.
Yep, that's exactly right. So we've created the document, we maintain it, but the words, the content is totally belongs to you. After we're going to provide a draft to you, so you'll have a final chance to look at it and adopt it. You'll want to take formal town board action using a local law to adopt the code. And that does two things. It adopts the organization of the code, and it also adopts any of the changes made during the course of the project. Those strike-throughs and underlines in that sample chapter, those will all be adopted as part of that code adoption local law. And there's a sample of that starting on page 7, and I want to draw your attention to a couple pieces of it, because I know one of the concerns we get is, well, now we have this code book, things are changed, we can't follow the same process. But if you look at section 1-2, it specifically says that the laws are not changed. It's a continuation of the laws. You're going to have local laws and ordinances in your code. It's still a local law. It's still an ordinance. It hasn't changed what the town board originally did. And then if you flip over a couple pages to section 1-11A, it acknowledges that, yes, there have been changes made to some of the words, but no changes in the meaning or intent of the laws have been made. Because, you know, we're not in the business of telling you what you should do. We just want to be able to give you legislation that's accessible. So you've really done the hard part. And the last part, the adoption, is a, I don't want to call it a formality, but it formalizes the work that you have done, that you've done so far. After you've adopted it, then we will publish the code book in both printed format and the online version. We found that most people access the code online. I still kind of like paper, but the online version is great because you can search, just put in the word dog, and every place the word dog appears in your code book, you'll get a hit and you can get context for that. You can, your town attorney, as he's drafting legislation, he can copy pieces out so he doesn't have to retype or have somebody retype for him the amendments. He can easily get that. There's some really nice features that if there are sections of the code that the town clerk is constantly getting phone calls on, she can put a public note in there with more details. Or if there's a permit form that goes with a certain section, she can put a link in there. So somebody reads that section and it says, oh, I need a permit, they can click on that and instantly go to that permit form. So it's good customer service. It makes your lives easier. It can be accessed through laptops, smartphones, all of that. And after that, it's just ongoing maintenance. As Mike said, if you adopt a law, then you send it to us and we update it. So your legislation always is up to date and current and shows the current status of your laws. We provide other services too, like samples. If you know you want something on windmills, say, then we can do some research from other New York towns, send you some samples which you can take a look at and see what other municipalities are doing.
But we could actually probably go on to other towns and type in windmills and
Yep.
do our own research.
Yes, you
Yeah.
could absolutely do that as well.
The piece on the links, you know, for saying, a permit, to put a pool in, for example, who puts that in? The town clerk, you said?
Yep.
So
There'll
the
be a
town clerk
training
has got administrative rights?
Yes, yeah, there'll be a training session. I confess this is beyond my area of expertise, but we could do a training session and all of that will be explained, how you can make create those links, create the notes, put all that information in there.
And this would tie into hopefully the whole RFP and technology, because we're reaching a spot in our town where, a bunch of our computers are on XP and, trying to put as much, to be as transparent as possible, put as much online so everybody can do anything what they want. They don't have to come down here to pick up a permit, they can go online. And so we can start, hopefully the intention would be to start putting a lot of stuff online so a person doesn't have to make a trip down, they can just fill it out and deliver it and take it from there. So we can go ahead and start, we just gotta develop the form, and do we send you the electronic form, then you codify it and put the link in?
We actually do it either way. Some communities want to have their form as part of the code, but some, because it changes or whatever, they keep it on the website, maintain it themselves, and then just put the link from the code into another part of the website. However you want to do that.
Good deal. So, I guess we maybe take a pause here and I want to ask the council, because I know, again, the council's got some concerns. Again, I just want to continue to reiterate that, this is all, there's nothing magical about this, especially some of the stuff that we've changed is pretty editorial, or there's been no structure change to our laws. We're not going from left and then turning right. But so, I don't know, Bob, do you have any thoughts? I mean, I just wanna make sure, you got, your concerns are completely addressed here.
Yeah, I've been listening to the questions, but seeing Claudia's here, I'll ask. One of my concerns was, some of what we've been dealing with, we've kind of felt that there's a lot that's infringement on property owners' rights. And we would like to see those changed. Now, when should that change actually take place, before or after you do that book?
Well, actually, I think I meant to mention this. I think you took a good approach. I know the land use, the zoning, the subdivision, and site plan, you kind of set aside and said, there's some sticky issues that we need to deal with.
Yeah, we haven't-
I think you were wise to say, let's just finish this and deal with that over time. Because it could take a long time, and you really don't want to hold up the entire project for a few issues. And it gives you by finishing the project now, it gives you the luxury of as much time as you need to make any future changes. And also, you have a nice, clean, accessible version if you need to do searches or you need to find something. You will have that completed code book. We generally recommend, if there's anything controversial or anything that requires more research, because there are timeframes laid out in the contract. We want the project to be finished for your benefit. It's best to say, okay, we know we need to deal with this. Let's deal with it separately from the code project. So I think that knowing that there are these issues, I think you made a good choice to finish everything else. And the code is always going to be changing. It will never be perfect. It's a living document. So you will just follow the regular local law adoption process for whatever additional changes need to be made.
So then what you're saying is, up to those last 3 chapters, everything else can be finished, but we're holding off on those last 3 chapters, and then when they're complete, we'll send them in to have them added to the codification?
Actually, I would include them the way they are now, because they do reflect your current legislation. So I would include them now, so that everybody knows this is the state of our law right now.
That's what we've been opposed to.
We can hold it up. We can put in a reserve page saying our zoning law is under review and will be included at a future date. We can do that. But then you don't have the access to it. And if you're having meetings and people are like, well, what does it say now? What are we changing? Then it's more difficult to get that information out there.
Well, if we change it, we have to have a public hearing anyway, correct?
Mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah. And that will be the case if you decide that your public assemblies chapter, right now it's at assemblies of 1,000 people or more. If you decide, well, that's too big, we want 500, same thing would have to happen. You'd have to adopt a local law to amend it to change 1,000 to 500, have a public hearing, the usual process.
Bob?
I asked one question.
All right. So, Doug?
The only question I have is, we did the first 7 chapters, okay? We went through, we took stuff out, we put stuff in, changed words. Okay, the last 3 chapters we didn't do anything with, okay? And what I've been told, that you can't take anything out or you can't add anything to it. How could you do that? How can you take one chapter and eliminate this, one part of it, and then you go to the next one and you add something to it? I don't understand that.
Well, the code project, and interestingly, New York State codification is one area where New York State says you can make a bunch of changes to your legislation and enact those changes with one local law. Usually, as Mike will tell you, a local law can only cover one subject, except in the case of codification. And if you look on page 4, there's a section of state law if you really want to, see what state law says. State law says you can make changes as part of your code project. You can make changes or not make changes through one local law. And it's entirely possible that, the current legislation is fine the way it is. You don't have to make changes. And you have gone through that thought process and decided, yeah, we need to change things here, but not here. And then the code adoption local law puts all of that into effect. If you look at, let's see, where did I put that? Page 12, there's what we call a sample of Schedule A. Because when you have that public hearing on the code adoption local law, people are gonna say, well, what did you change? And we will provide Schedule A for you, which tells everybody exactly what changed. It details what changed.
This is almost not quite like, but this is a high-level Schedule A change.
Yes,
It's gonna be more detailed, but it's gonna say, hey, we changed. Remember when West Blessing came in about fire warden? Fire warden was a small f and a small w. We made a change, considered it's a proper noun, to a capital F and a capital W. So the Schedule A is gonna say, here's the old, here's the new.
yeah, it's
And
exactly
this
right.
is almost a little bit, it's a little cramped in here, but.
It says, okay, in section 18-2, you added this definition, there it is. And then item number 2, it shows that in section 18-4 D1, the word garbage was deleted. And why was it deleted? Well, solid waste and garbage it's redundant. So the decision was made, take out garbage and just use the word solid waste, so that redundancy isn't there. And Schedule A will cover all of the changes in all of the chapters. If there are no changes to a chapter, it won't appear in Schedule A, because the text is as the town originally adopted.
That help, Doug, or not really? A little bit?
I just don't understand how you can take 7 chapters, put stuff in, take stuff out, and it's okay. And then the rest, we just put it through the way it is. I don't understand it. The last 3 chapters, we never even went over.
Well, I mean, I don't want to tie Claudia's time up, but there are chapters,
And they're the most important ones.
right, but we made no change on them.
It's my understanding, and we see this quite frequently, that the land use, because it is, some people call their zoning their code, because that's what people look for most, the zoning and the land use. And they do put them in without change, as I said to Mr. Myers, to take the extra time to review them, because you don't want to sit on a project. In this case, you've invested probably at least 60% of the investment in this project to this point already. So you don't necessarily want to sit on that for 5 years or 2 years, however long it takes. So the thought is that it's better to have the law as it exists, because it's your adopted zoning, even if it needs updating or there are things that need to change. It is the state of your law at this point in time. Better to have that in there with everything else, and we can continue to review it over time. So it's a perfectly reasonable, not uncommon situation for people to do that.
So in other words, basically what this amounts to is we got a time frame. This has gotta be done by a certain time, and that's basically what it is. Am I right with what I just said?
That's a piece of it, but one of the primary purposes of having a code is so that your legislation is organized and accessible. And whether you change it or not, finishing this project gives you accomplishes that purpose.
That's all I have. Joe?
I think it should be clear that the New York State allowing us to make a bunch of little changes and then adopt them with one local law at the end, means that the code is established, right?
Mhm.
And then, at that point, after it's adopted, we can make changes whatever we want. We can go to zoning, subdivision, something, whatever. We can repeal, well, we can repeal, like we, you know, can we repeal as part of the adoption of the codification?
Yes, yep.
So that is like mining, we threw mining out, so we can repeal that, and that cleans it up kinda nice.
Right, and if you look on page 8, there's, in that sample local, code adoption local law, there's a place where we specifically repeal certain things, like the mining.
So that anything that, once it's adopted, we can change whatever we want.
Yeah, it's always your legislation, you can update it as you need to.
Bob, do you see that?
Well, I like that, but I don't like the idea of all this stuff going in and still being on the books that's infringement on property owners' rights. I don't like putting my name to that because people are not happy with it, and I just felt like now is the time to make the changes instead of getting the cart before the horse. And I guess maybe I'm out in left field with that, but that's just the way I see it. I don't know, it just seems like it's a lot of extra work to send it in, have it all done, and then us take and send 3 chapters in that need to be rewritten and done all over again.
I think it's a good point for discussion to determine, okay, are we going to completely rewrite zoning? Or are we going to revise pieces of it? If you're just going to revise pieces of it, then it's probably better to put the whole thing in rather than holding it out. If you're planning on a completely new zoning, or there's one in process, that might be a situation where we want to hold it out and put a reserve page in, so people know that it's out there and it's under review. I don't know the extent of the changes that you're considering, so that would be something for you to discuss.
Lou? So then we can adopt it without these last 3 chapters?
Yes,
correct?
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That answers that question. I've got a different question. I know we signed a contract for 3 years, I think it was. I don't know if you can answer it or not.
I don't know if there's a time limit on it. I mean, there are time frames in it, but I don't know if there's an expiration date.
What's the maintenance fee after the 3rd year? I think we paid for it.
There is an annual maintenance fee for E-code 360, and I believe that's in the $1,400 range. For supplementation, it's billed on a time and materials basis. So the time it takes us to incorporate the changes is what we bill. So if you have a minor change that changes a fee from, or a penalty from $250 to $300, that's obviously not going to take us very much time. If you adopt a giant new stormwater management that takes us hours to edit and incorporate, that would be more expensive. So it's not on a per page
What's
rate.
the per page cost?
It varies. There is no per page cost. It's more of an hourly based on the time it takes to incorporate the changes.
Well, you've looked at our town laws. What would you anticipate it would cost if we made changes? Just looking at the way our structures.
I honestly can't say because laws vary so greatly. There could be a new chapter takes a lot more time to edit than 5 pages of minor changes.
What would a new chapter cost?
I can't tell you because it depends on the size of it, the complexity of it. I can't have an answer for that.
Would it be $5,000 a year?
No, a community of your size, probably less than $3,000 a year. And you can decide how often you want to update. If you want to update as legislation is as adopted, or 4 times a year, once a year, and that's a discussion that we can have at the end of the project. It's up to you.
But there is a maintenance fee,
For the online version, yes, that's an annual maintenance fee.
and that's how much?
I think it's $14.50. And that starts a year after the code is published. So the first year is covered already, and then it kicks in after that. So if, say that the town adopts in September 2014, then that maintenance fee won't kick in until September 2015.
And any changes in between would be added.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. When we do a supplement to the code, it updates both the printed version and the online version at the same time.
So if there was a change to a paragraph in chapter 75, for example, you make a change, insert it online, and then you send
Updated
5
pages.
copies of
Yep.
the pages to be, whoever has the book to insert them.
Yep.
So if changes are made now, that's all covered under the initial contract, 3-year contract, but if it's
Yes.
changes after that, then
Then the supplementation. The only exception to that would be, say you adopt a new zoning, and your current zoning is 60 pages, and the new zoning is 100 pages, those extra 40 pages would be an additional charge, because they were not part of the original materials. Those are good questions. Any more?
I'm good. Hey, Mary Jane.
Just to clarify in my mind, when she sends the proof over, technically, now when you check it out, you will have to have a hearing on that before you can adopt it? In other words, you bring it to the public first? Before you vote on it
Before we
to
adopt
accept
the
what's
final version,
in there?
yes.
Right, before we adopt, there'll be a public hearing, correct?
That's
You know-
what I'm saying, I mean, before anything is, say, put in stone,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be okayed first by the board before it's, say, put on the internet or whatever.
Absolutely.
And we can provide you with a PDF of the draft, so
Oh,
that it
you
can be
Schedule
posted,
A?
and Schedule A, so that it can be put on the website, so you can review the draft and the proposed law and all the changes as well. We can provide that
Well,
information.
My concern was that to understand that before this is put into stone or into the final draft or into the final publish, that it will be to a public hearing and then be adopted by the board.
Mm-hmm.
That it wasn't be just, okay, we got it on there.
No,
Well, that's my concern.
no. We'll print up a copy. I'll give you the whole book.
Gotta have a large print.
Yes.
Just a question on, when I was going over through the swimming pool issues with fences, our law was outdated with the size of the fence and the fact that it only required a fence to be around certain pools. Where state code has, and maybe Nick can answer when he's gone, about the state code obviously would supersede what the town law has had for so many years. But again, making that change to reflect the correct law is technically changing the town law. And that, again, would be also incorporated into, would they have to have a public hearing to make the public aware that no longer the law that was on the books by the town of Princetown saying that a pool only 2 feet high had to have, nothing more than, or nothing less than 2 feet high had to have a fence, where now everything has to have a fence. That would also have to come before a public hearing as well, because even though it is state law and it's required that we follow that, it's still changing the town law essentially.
Right. And that's a good example, and I don't know specifically what change, if any, they've decided to make, but that's a good example of something that would be listed in that Schedule A, set out very specifically to show people that, yes, the town law used to say this, but now it's in line with
And that
state
would
law.
also be incorporated into a public hearing incorporating all of the issues. So you'd have one big public hearing with all issues, or would they all have to be separate public hearings?
at the time that we adopt the new code, since state law, and probably a good time to talk about that, because there were some opinions, and there were old opinions before the amendment to the state municipal home rule law that held that you would still, even when you did a codification, have to have separate public hearings when you had changes to the law. The legislature made that clear that that's not the case when they added the specific language that said when you're doing a codification, it can include amendments, deletions, repeals, alterations, and new provisions. So long as you have something like the schedule that shows people what sections are being changed when you adopt the new code. So it basically, to the extent that there are those kinds of changes, it would be in the one hearing to adopt the new code.
Yes,
I
sorry.
just want to clarify that what you guys are talking about, if you take out the last 3 chapters and codify the ones you've already approved, those 3 laws are still in place.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if they're
If they're in the
codified
book
or
or
not,
not,
because they're still in
They'll
place.
still be the law.
And they'll still be the law, so it's correct?
Right.
They just won't be accessible on the internet to everybody.
Correct,
Right.
okay.
So there's no opacity and transparency on those 3.
Three.
They just won't be there.
Correct,
They'll
and
be
you guys
facts,
could
but
still.
they won't be changed.
Right, and you guys could still be talking about the things you want to change. And so after codification's done, like you said, and it's been approved as a new town law and codified, you then could still implement the changes you want as soon as you're ready. So they can be done simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive, correct?
Correct.
Is there some rationale behind not including those 3 chapters? Because I thought we were trying to be open and transparent about what's going on.
No, just, there's things in that, Tim, that some would like to see changed, okay? That's been since, what, 96 or whatever, when those were adopted, to my understanding, and there are some things in there that we would like to maybe even take out. But that, we haven't had that opportunity to do that yet. And that's why I'm just hesitant on, as far as I'm concerned, having it go through the way it is without us making those changes and taking out what we feel is no longer necessary.
Well, wouldn't that promote a more informed discussion if you publish what exists today so that you could discuss the types of changes you want to make? Wouldn't that make, I mean, this whole process here of codification and reorganization makes change, facilitates change. It makes it easier to do because you're communicating what you have in a better fashion. So you have a more engaged and a more informed discussion. Now, I heard last month, Bob, where you got up and you said you've been a councilman for 10 years, and this is really the first time you've had a good look at all these laws. Some of these laws that you were on the board sitting and passed, and now you're realizing that you don't like them
That's right.
10 years hence.
Yeah. Exactly.
So without this process, without this visibility and this codification, you'd still be in the dark.
Right, but if we go ahead and put these 3 chapters in, Tim, are we gonna, down the road, make those changes?
Well, that's up to you.
Right.
So you're in
right,
that
but
part-
are we going to? That's
Are
the
you
thing.
not in the process
But
of
I don't,
of
that's
making
incidental.
the drafts now?
No, let me just finish my conversation with Bob. That is incidental to publishing these things so that people have visibility and they have the full, I don't understand why you're trying to sweep some things under the rug.
No,
And
I'm
make
not
other
trying to
things
sweep
visible.
anything under the rug. I'm not all about that, Tim. I'm just saying we can take and do this publicly, and so be it. I have no problem with that. I have nothing to hide, okay? It's just there's some things that I am not as a town resident, I'm not happy with because it infringes on my property rights as well as everybody else in town. And everybody else in town, if they really knew what those infringements were, they would not be for it either, Tim.
So you still have the
Well, let me
opportunity,
finish.
let's start shutting this down. I'm gonna allow a couple more questions, and then I gotta start shutting it down. We have a meeting.
I'm of the opinion, I don't think you're gonna find one resident in this town that likes every single piece of code up there,
You're exactly right.
okay?
You're exactly
But we
right.
wanna highlight that, Bob, you can make the changes.
Just because it's visible, I would think it would make your discussion to point out what you don't like and make changes easier if it's, you got the full breadth of our code up there.
And
Because people are gonna say, they're gonna ask the same question I did. Why did you not put 3 sections up there and you put the rest of it up there? That's gonna cause a lot of concern, I think.
If I had the assurance that we could start from the meeting right after this meeting on working on those 3 chapters and changing, making whatever changes publicly, I would be fine with that.
Well, we've already stated that the ZRC is doing this, and I've begged you guys to participate in that discussion.
But shouldn't we be looking at it and doing that?
So when I say we, Bob, that's exactly what I'm saying. We, the town board, should be participating in the ZRC. That's what they're doing. They're looking at that law. You need to participate. Anyway, 2 more comments. So Eric and, Pat and Sandra.
Would that be me now?
Okay.
All right, no, you said Eric and then
Yeah,
Sandra.
I meant-
Whatever. Okay, I just, you know, when you talk about clarification, as Claudia said earlier, if you have the 3 chapters in question in the codification book, I can go in there and read what it says. But if they're not in there, and then you're telling me you want to change the law because of infringement, well, what did it say? What does the current law say? Codification and law are 2 different things. So when you codify, you organize and you reveal what every section is. You're not setting any of it in stone. So to not include those 3 chapters in question is still it's still keeping the transparency not in full scope, because those 3 laws aren't in the codification book. So it's just a matter of include it, and then down the road you have a public hearing about that particular law and that particular law that was passed in '96. You have to separate the chicken and the egg. These are 2 separate, different things.
And
Period.
Feel free to start working on it at any time you want.
Yeah, but it should be board action.
Well-
That's why they're saying now that we shouldn't be taking and doing things behind closed doors. We need to do it publicly.
I'm not sure he said that, but so do you want to sit in a public hearing and start going through chapter 45?
No, we as a board need to sit down and discuss it.
Whenever you want to start, Bob, I'm willing to start.
I was ready months ago, but it was not wanted to be gone through.
Well,
Said
we-
that the other committees were going through it.
Pat?
I think it's fantastic. It is already going through, the ZRC is already doing it. And you're welcome to go and do it and sit down with them in the meetings and be part of that meeting. It's already in process. So and it may take a year, it may take 2 years, but to have 3 chapters of your current law, not an E-code, for that amount of time, doesn't make sense. Then you can make the changes. If you take 1 chapter and you make all the changes to that chapter, you pass it, you have a town board meeting, you make the amendments, you change it, you vote on it, you put that chapter at rest. Then you go to the next chapter, and the next chapter. So it takes 2 more years to do those 3 chapters, but at least the current laws are on E-code, so that everybody has access to them.
The key phrase, the current laws are on the books and in E-code and structured accordingly, but.
Open for everybody to see.
So Strickland, any more questions or comments to the board, so. Bob, any final thoughts, additional questions?
I'm all set.
You sound, just an observation, Bob, you sound a little,
Well, it's just, I can't be going to all these meetings night after night, or however often they meet. I mean, I don't know how can we as a board go, because we have a quorum? So, I mean, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand why we cannot discuss those chapters just like we did those first 7 chapters.
We can.
Well, that's all I'm saying. Why don't we do the 3 chapters like we did the first 7 chapters? And I think that's what some of the others have concern with. We couldn't do that.
But we have to bring the ZRC in too, because they're working concurrently on this chapter.
Just have the whole town here while we do it. It doesn't matter. There's nothing to hide. It's just that there's some changes that need to be changed.
So you've got your chapters laid out that you wanna change?
Well, there's things in the zoning and the subdivision that should be changed, yes.
So the answer is you're ready to go with your changes?
I'm ready to put them out there for discussion, sure.
Okay, so I'm not sure who's on the ZRC when the next meeting is?
Thursday.
Thursday? There we go. All right.
This-
Again, I don't want to change subjects. The subject here really is the E-code. I noticed some confusion. I wanted to bring in Claudia, again, thanks for taking the drive in. You know, just to work through, it's the process. You know, right now we're talking about process versus law, and I don't want to mix the two up as, you know, again, chicken and egg or left and right. One's talking about process and one's talking about law. So, Doug, I know it's been pretty intense here, but again, I want to see if you have any, follow-up questions. Joe?
I'm good. I think that what Bob is saying can be achieved perfectly by just making the law that we have, put it in the code so that it's accessible to everybody, including every one of us. So that we can discuss. Bob, you can go through and highlight what you want, that you don't like, or whatever. Compare that with what GRC says. And it seems to me to be just such a rational way.
Joe, I have no problem with that, and like I said, I have nothing to hide. I just
no, it's
know
just-
that there are some things that need to be changed because,
But we can do that.
I'm not trying to be hard with anybody.
Right.
But
It's just,
we can do that.
okay, if we can do that, then let's do it.
But the question's gonna be, do we want to include those 3 chapters as they exist today, the law today, in the codification? Because it's not gonna this discussion with these 3 chapters is not gonna be a 1-month deal. It's gonna take a year or 2 to go through it.
Why would it take a year or 2 to go through them?
What do you think it'll take?
I don't think it'll take a year or 2,
Well,
that's
I
for
don't
sure.
think so. I
Well-
think it could be done in a matter of 2 or 3 months. We went through 7 chapters or more with, what, how many months? Now, I really don't understand why gonna take 2 years either, but
When we first tried to put ethics into, that was almost a 6-month deal, and that was 1 law. 1,
And the estimates are coming from the ZRC too.
you know. All right. Sorry. Asked you, right?
Yeah.
Lou?
Kind of knows.
can I just ask one more question, Mike?
Absolutely. This is exactly what we want, is, as much communication is here as we can be, so if you have questions, but we can stay as long as you need to stay.
No, and that's fine. And again, my question now would be, okay, ZRC gonna go through it, make these changes. Then it's gonna come to us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we gotta go through it and make our changes.
If we want.
So if it takes them 2 years, why is it a problem if it took us 2 years?
I didn't say it was. I'm just saying, for 2 years, as Pat indicated, if the rest of these get put up and codified, it's gonna look like a major gap to the residents, like, why aren't these 3 chapters in there? Where are they?
Okay, so we don't have any time then to hold off the whole thing till we go through the 3 chapters, even if it took us 2 or 3 months?
That's what we're saying, yeah.
They got a schedule, they want this thing done by what date?
It's not, you know, I don't.
That's what it is. They
No, it's
want it
not.
done by a
Let's not,
certain
let's
date.
not assume that this is a.
E-code, they got their thing, what's your contract on?
I don't have the contract in front of me, there are timeframes from point A to point B.
According to
So-
this book, you had the schedule and it went to,
Yeah.
let me see, February, March, April,
It
May.
was
Yeah,
3
yeah,
payments
May.
over 3 years. It was percentage
May,
of project.
No,
May
the project
13th.
schedule was different.
So you gotta have this all printed and put on the computer by September, roughly, October.
No, actually, if we went by the contractual timeframes, it would be, the outside end would be December of this year.
Okay. So
And
in other
those
words,
are,
it's gotta
those
be
are,
done.
those are guidelines. We encourage you to stay within the guidelines because we have seen where projects stall for years. And that, you've already invested so much, it's not to your benefit to just let it languish.
I understand exactly
So-
what you're telling me.
If you can, set a solid time frame and say, you have a goal in mind, we wanna have these changes by X date, then that's a benefit for everybody.
So which change, Bob, was subdivision regulations, chapter 160. Who's gonna make the changes?
That would be a collective effort.
I know, but who's gonna make the changes?
I don't know.
Doug or Lou? Who's gonna make the changes that we wanna make changes to?
Well, who's gonna make the changes before we send them in?
They're-
I mean, if ZRC is going through it, obviously there's gonna be changes made, so who's gonna make those changes?
The ZRC,
Okay.
that person's,
And then it's gonna come to the town board.
that's right, is normal, everyday process. But they're on a different time schedule. You're saying you wanted to get this done in 3 months. That's 3 meetings, and somebody's gonna have to sit there and make the changes. And that's my question, who's gonna do that?
The thing is, you're just trying to make the schedule.
I'm not,
they have
Doug,
to
Doug,
the
that's,
end of
that's,
the
that's
year.
pre- that's pretty rude, and that's
That's the way I
implying.
look at it.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
yeah.
I'm not trying to be difficult, Mike, I just don't understand, I mean,
I can't, I've done the best that I can try to explain. Again, there's some implications here that this is all driven by this or that, and, I've asked as many people to try to work this out. And if you guys wanna trash it, because that's where it's going. And, I begged Claudia to come out, Heather put hundreds and hundreds of hours in, ZRC, and if you guys don't, and you approved these, you read through each one of these chapters and went, okay, that's not a bad deal, I agree with that. And now today you're saying, there's a communist plot here. If you wanna trash it, because, I've pretty much begged and borrowed, and people's time of 3 years worth of work is just gonna get trashed. And if that's where you wanna go, that's fine. I'm gonna put it to bed, I'm gonna try to follow the process, I'm gonna bring it to vote, and if you wanna trash it, trash it. But,
Mike, that's not really all true.
well, it is actually, Bob.
We went through the first 7 chapters and we were fine with that.
Then what?
We
is
don't
it?
have a problem with those chapters now.
Actually, we went through all these chapters, except for 3.
The last 3 chapters we did,
And
and that's
the
where the
quote-
problem lies.
But you've got the opportunity to make those changes.
Okay, and who's gonna make those changes down the road then? If you're asking the question.
The ZRC,
Okay, so then let the ZRC make those changes.
and then they bring them to us.
Right,
Right?
okay.
Then when
And
we
what if we
pass
don't
or
agree?
change, whatever we do, like the comprehensive plan, they gave us a document, we said, no, change this, change that, change this. They did. That's the way this is gonna work.
Okay, so they're gonna make the changes and we have to approve.
In accordance with the comprehensive plan.
Right.
Okay? as concerned citizens are saying here, you've gone through, and I don't know how many chapters here, let's say, how many?
27.
27 chapters we went through. 24 of them, we went through and agreed to. 3, we said, it's too controversial, let's just put it in as it is, as the law exists today.
No, we didn't say that. We didn't say that.
Actually,
Put it in
actually,
the way it was. I didn't say that.
well, how do you want to put it in, Luke?
I don't wanna put it in until the changes are
It's
made.
part of our law.
It's the
It's there.
existing law.
We're not putting it in, it's there.
It's already there. It's existing
Well,
law.
I'll clarify it. I don't wanna codify it until the changes are made.
There you go.
That's what
There we
Doug
go.
has said, that's what Bob has said, and that's what I've said.
Okay, I guess, folks, there it is. So we're gonna put in all these other chapters minus the 3 most critical chapters in the town. Let me repeat, the most critical chapters in the town, we're not gonna be transparent on and put it out there. Do you have a copy of the latest chapter 200?
Mhm.
You do?
Okay,
Where'd you get it?
well, I have the one that we're, in our book that we've been
You
working
sure
on.
that's the latest? Well, don't look at Luke.
How do
Don't
I-
look at Doug.
I've got what it has been given to us from Heather.
You passed it in 1996, and you had no idea, and for next years, you didn't even look at it, you know, and now it's a problem.
Mike, she
It
said
is
we
what
have
it is.
till
It
December
is what
to
it
get
is.
this in, so why don't we just hold the whole project in the next 2 or 3 months,
So
we'll work
listen,
on it and
listen,
send it all
listen
in
to the, what,
together.
do you think it's just pushing a button? It's not. She's got 6 months or 4 months worth of work between now and December. There's not just like, well, okay, I'm gonna go home to Rochester and then December, push the button and boom, it's done. No, they've gotta codify all these laws. It is months of work. I just don't, I'm struggling to understand, you agreed to these, you read them, you sat there and went, okay, no big deal. Wes Blessing came in and said, yeah, I'm agreeing with this, and you guys went, oh, you sure? Yeah, okay, I'm good. And now today, no. Nope. Do what you want. You know, I've asked Claudia, I've begged the planning board, zoning board, ZRC, there's not a person in town who I haven't asked to come in and help with this. You wanna make changes, go ahead, I don't understand what the holdup is.
Yeah, what's
Break
the
your book
problem?
out and start making changes. You don't have to wait for Claudia. When you're done, we'll take the book and send it to Claudia and she'll make the changes. Period. You know, you say, I wanna make changes, but then you don't do anything.
But it shouldn't be me making changes.
Mike, are the citizens of this town gonna have an understanding of what laws are on the books?
I will do whatever it takes.
Are we gonna be apprised of what actually exists today if they don't get codified?
Schedule A, listen.
No,
Schedule A.
no, if it doesn't get codified, I'm gonna go look, am I gonna be provided a binder that has all the laws?
No.
So that I can make,
What difference does it make?
I'm
You
not.
have the laws the way they've been. You look at them in a book until they're codified. They're the
We
same.
don't have a book, that's the
Where is
problem.
that? We do have a book.
No, not all of us have books.
We've had books here for
Well, let
20
me ask
years.
Claudia, when you started putting the books together, how many chapters or laws did you have to go, between you and Joe, have to go to the State Department to look because we didn't have a copy in town hall?
I don't remember exactly, but
Ballpark.
it was 8.
8 chapters weren't in our books. I've been here 3 years, I don't have a book, never had one.
I'm the zoning chair, I'm positive my book isn't up to date, I'm positive it's not. I know it's not.
This is,
and when I sit on the zoning board, my book is different than the guy next to me.
Just ask for.
And Lou was sitting up there for a year without a book.
hey, you guys can trash it again, if you don't wanna do it, don't do it. Because it's gonna go back to exactly where it was. We're gonna have 14 copies of different laws, and the McLean lawsuit is prime, because it's gonna come down to, in this society, that's the way it is. It's gonna come down to splitting hairs over words and meanings. 6-foot fence, 8-foot fence. What did you mean, Princetown? We don't know what you mean. That's what it's gonna come down to.
Well, we're changing.
I'm sorry, this isn't open for
Well,
discussion.
Wales is open.
Nope.
It's open for
Nope.
everybody else, like.
I thought it was open for a while.
Yeah, everybody was talking, but of course when it's me, it's not open.
Right.
I'm cold. I had enough of this thing. Jesus, so we get out of here.
All right, we're done with E-code. Any more questions?
Whole town's screwed up.
See you later.
Claudia, anything else?
From my perspective, no.
All right, well, thank you very much.
for driving, Claudia.
Thanks for
Have
the
a
time.
safe trip home.
I appreciate it.
All right, reports. Highway left. I'll give them 2 minutes. Van Patten Road's been repaired. We're trying to get additional summer work done. Let's have one meeting, please. All right. And he's hopefully trying to get Katie Company to give us a price on just tarring the roads and not repairing, full repair on Willow Run and Princetown Plaza. And I've also asked him to look into clearing some culverts on Reuter Drive. So that's highway. Water, no changes for George. 3/4 of the water bills went out. Otherwise, everything's pretty quiet. Code enforcement.
Okay, took in $529 in June. We have 4 septic repairs, 5 solar panel permits, 2 sheds. 2 of the septics I've inspected already. The solar panels, they're calling me, they wanna start closing some of them up. And I gotta go through the list and start calling people up, cause I know a pool went in and I looked at that and nobody calls me. So Brian Kennedy just came in to get a permit for what he's building on Pennyman Road. And he built a fortress. I gotta go look at it, but from what he described, he did about 4 times what he needed to do on it. I do have building inspector cards now, so I'm gonna take another ride up the Briar Light, or Spring Road up there where the neighbor was complaining that there was a bunch of junk next to the house. I did go look at it, but I was afraid to go past the signs that says do not pass this point. So, with no identification. So I'm gonna take another run up there, and I'm gonna call tomorrow on the courses for certification, get going on that, cause I got things pretty much under control here. And I think that's about it.
Questions for Nick? I got one. Mrs. Gilman's called me about 4 times. Mrs. Gilman, your father knows, on Quackenbush.
Oh, yeah.
Right next to Hickok. So Marv, this is gonna include you, unfortunately. So somebody's gotta talk to Besenfall. If not, you know, we tried to work with them last year a bit, Joe Ryan, because last year's storm, you know, half the farm ended up across the street.
Yeah.
And they had to clean the street, culverts, put new pipes in, and it's all coming from him. So Rick Gilman's gonna be formally submitting a complaint
Okay.
for his mother. So I'm gonna suggest that we, and Marv, I know you're the property owner, so unfortunately, you know, you're gonna be dragged into the discussion. But I would suggest that before this goes too much further, and the county and everybody gets involved, that we set up a 3-way or 4-way meeting, yourself, Marv, Besenfall, myself, and, you know, maybe not necessarily Mike, but, and maybe a board member, but that's gotta be addressed.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have any suggestions.
Gotta try to figure out where to run the water.
Well, when he's,
I've been looking at it, driving by it, what it's doing is it's running out of the field, and it goes in the ditch, and it's going under those driveways, they might have to, the county might have to shoot a pipe across.
Joe Ryan's not gonna do it.
There's too much volume now.
When Besenfall, and, you know, again, I've met with the county 3 or 4 times, like your father was there for the same 3 or 4 times. When he started heavy farming there used to be a natural area where the water would gather and not necessarily run down the street. He flattened it out. So now it's just a direct shot, that whole field comes through.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have to, you know, either build a small retaining pond or something, I don't know, I'm not the engineer, but, you know, I went down there with Mrs. Gilman, Rick's gonna file a complaint. And Joe Ryan and them are pretty adamant, you know, this is not their problem. And certainly, you know, and I don't wanna say it's not our problem to Mrs. Gilman either. You know, it is, I don't know if he just needs to put a berm up there, a couple of berms to push the water back. You know, it's corn, it'll go away in a day.
They'll find another way around. The whole hill comes down that way.
But it didn't used to.
It always been like that my whole life.
Yeah.
They never filled nothing in there, that's the way the ground was.
What's been happening is the storms we've been having lately are horrendous. We haven't really had anything like this or snow in a while.
Right,
I don't remember this kind of weather from the sixties, I was a kid. Rained like crazy and it snowed and.
Right, yeah.
If it
Global
doesn't
climate
rain, there's
change.
no problems.
Right, global climate change, environmentalists. So, do we wanna set up a meeting like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock Thursday in front of Mrs. Gilman's?
Yeah.
Are you available?
Yeah.
Marv, are you available?
Sure, Dave.
All right. I'd rather try to address this between 3 or 4 parties before it gets, because Joe Ryan and them get involved again. We tried to talk about putting another culvert, and all he's saying is like, you can't take the water from Mrs. Gilman and then push it onto somebody else's property. Who owns the property across the street? You can't, you can't make a pond on his lawn.
Well, it ends up there anyway.
Huh?
It ends up there anyway, but it goes across everybody's front line and then it takes a 90-degree turn, right?
Again,
Which it doesn't want to do.
I'm not the lawyer here, I'm just saying, he's got an issue, he's got a legitimate issue. You know, we can probably work it out. I don't know how, but it's gotta be taken care of. All right, thanks, Nick. Anything for Nick? Doug? Joe? Lou? Bob?
No, I'm good.
Justice, nothing to report. Dog control, nothing. Town planner?
Things have been a little quieter in the planning department. We received a few phone calls from the residents inquiring about some of their land issues, and a few residents have called about the floodplain map updates that were completed in the fall and how it's affecting them and their insurance requirements. So we're trying to get answers for them. As far as the progress on projects, there's been little movement on our open projects, and our June planning board meeting was canceled due to lack of business. I attended the hazardous meeting workshop put on by Schenectady County in June along with Mike Cooland and Joe. So we're gonna be working on the hazardous mitigation.
I'm pretty excited about that.
And the ZRC has been continuing our progress on the proposed Hamlet district. At our last meeting, we invited Carver Laraway and his associates to the meeting. And Carver is generally happy with the location and definition of the uses for the Hamlet districts. And his attorney, Donald Z, had a lot of thoughtful suggestions to revise the wording for practicality of the use of the parcels that would lie within the Hamlet district. And the open dialogue was helpful. There was another resident, or another person, John Sindoni, was present at that meeting, and he's looking to purchase some of the property for Carver to move his small business into town. And the meeting was quite productive, and the ZRC committee is editing the document for the discussion, and the next meeting is Thursday, and it's open to anyone.
Perfect. So, for the residents and the board, this is, in my humble opinion, and this is exactly the democracy that we want. We want the ZRC being guided by the comprehensive plan, saying this is our vision of what the Hamlet's gonna look like, but then taking that vision and asking the developer to come in and say, you know, what's the pros and cons to working with the developer? Because he's gonna look at it a little bit different. He's gonna look at it dollars and cents and construction-wise, et cetera. And that's the perfect match, I think. So, you know, I know I met Carver that night, I said thank you, but just for everybody else, this is the perfect marriage. Well, probably not perfect, but this is exactly I hope the input that we gotten some from the town board, but, that a developer, and this is on Route 20, Carver, was gonna come in, he's got a proposal for a hamlet area down there, and he met with the ZRC, and they're combining their ideas and their visions, and that's exactly what we want for this town. They have their vision by the comprehensive plan, they work with the developer, they kind of merge their thoughts, and hopefully at the end here in a couple weeks or so, you guys will have the vision. So that was a great effort, great effort, man, I appreciate it. Doug?
No questions.
Joe?
Thank you, Laura, very much.
I'm fine, Mark.
Bob?
Thank you, Lynn.
All right, town clerk, anything?
No.
I have a supervisor here, but I wanna try to keep moving here, so just go through the council, and then I'll do my report. Doug, anything to update for the last month or so?
No, only thing I was wondering, how come, on the television, when the battery went dead, how come the rest of the meeting wasn't on there?
It should be on there.
When you said that you had to change the battery, from
Right.
then on, there's nothing on television.
I'll double check it, but as near as I know, when I did the edit between the two cuts,
The end of the meeting, it
well,
stops.
I'll
when you
look
said-
at it.
When there's the end of the battery was dead,
Right.
from then on, that was the end.
Well, I don't have any way of giving you an answer right now until I look at it, so I'll look at it and get back to you on it.
What else you got, Doug?
That's all.
All right, Joe?
Over this past weekend, in front of George Mead's house on Route 7, a dog was killed by a motorcyclist who went down, and I'm wondering if there is a petition process, or if anybody knows, that we can go to the state Department of Transportation and have that speed limit changed, reduced to like 45 or maybe even 40 for that stretch between, Pangburn Road and Kelly Station. The woman was hurt on the motorcycle, the dog was killed, traffic was disrupted, and it seems to me that as a motorcyclist myself, it's very, when you're in a residential area that have dogs, and having a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit is excessive. So if anybody, Mike, do you know?
Yeah, the town board can request that the Department of Transportation look at the speed on there. They generally look at whatever data they have as far as accidents and things like that in order to determine.
Would we have to make that a formal resolution?
Yeah, you could even have initially a letter from the supervisor, requesting them to look at it.
This actually goes, because we got some other letters that are in progress for speeds on other roads that we've been working on for a couple of years, so I'll add it to the action register.
Lou, do you know? Do you think the Department of Transportation know anybody over there?
Well, I know that when they put the light in on Pangburn Road, it was requested back then that the speed limit be reduced, and DOT said at the time that they studied it, and they said that it wasn't necessary to reduce the speed limit. That's what their comments were at the time, because everybody requested lowering the speed limit as opposed to putting up a traffic light there to stop the accidents at that intersection, and they said that it was not necessary. Their data didn't show that speed is what caused the accidents at the intersection, and the speed was appropriate for that section of road. Now, you can send another letter to them, just as Mike said, and request it, but that'll be up to them, and like he said, they'll just look at the accident data and.
It's actually the second accident there within a couple of weeks, because if you look at it now, there was a tar truck that swerved to somebody pulling in a driveway, and that's why there's that spill in the road, which took DOT time to clean it up, but we can get a letter together and get you a name.
Okay.
That it, Joe?
That's all, yes.
Lou?
State Police Barracks, they repaired the air conditioning unit, they had to replace the compressor. Still waiting for some estimates on the roof, it's still holding up pretty well. I had somebody come over there to replace the window, give us a price on replacing the window, which is probably gonna be in the neighborhood of $150 or something, the one window that's not operative. They haven't submitted an estimate on it yet. We do have a new commander over there, I haven't met him yet. Sergeant Donato was transferred out this past week, there's a new one coming in. He's on vacation this week, so he won't start until sometime next week. And around the town hall, the groundskeeper took care of the beds, did the mulching. And one other comment I have to make, it was brought up that it was never notified that we were gonna spray around here, and that's not true. I brought it up at the meeting, 2 meetings ago prior to this. You can look at the tape, I said what we were gonna do, and nobody said a word. Not one word was mentioned about it. And I don't know what else I can say about it. Not one word, it's always after the fact. But it was brought up at that town board meeting, and you can go back and look at the tape, and I said I was gonna do that, and not one word was said. I'll say it again, not one word was said. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. I don't understand it. I think that our groundskeeper did an excellent job out here doing the mulching and taking care of all of the work that had to be done. I think it looks excellent.
I meant that was something I wanted to say. It does look good out there. The grass looks good too.
So, other than that, they sprayed around here for the bugs inside the building. And they'll be doing that on a continuing basis from now until the fall. I told them not to do it in the fall, after the frost sets in, just to keep the mice and the rodents out and the ants that were crawling around the building. Other than that, I guess everything else is fine. Oh, I did get an estimate, and I'm gonna present it to the town board about resealing the parking area out here before the fall. I had one estimate come in, and I'm gonna seek 2 more, reseal the whole parking lot. We're starting to get, as you drive in, you'll see ruts or cracks in it, starting to develop. They should be sealed, and it should be seal coated down again. It was done, I don't know, 5 years ago, I think. And before it gets much worse, we should do that and patch it. And one fella that came up here and looked at it, he said he would patch it and seal it and repaint the lines, so.
How much is that gonna cost?
I don't have the estimates on it yet. Until I get the estimates, I won't know.
So for the roof, we got a scope of work, because.
Yes, I already got that out to him.
Do you have a copy for us? or-
No, I didn't bring it with me.
So for all 3 or 4 vendors for the roof?
Yep. So,
Just wanna, I don't know if you've watched your budget, but you probably wanna be keeping your eye on your budget, because I think this is gonna get pretty close pretty quick. But, all right, thank you. Any questions for Lou? Bob?
Just at a meeting or 2 ago, when we worked on the employee handbook issues, we still have actually a whole page of questions that the board needs to make some clarification, but I think it's a little lengthy for tonight, so maybe in one of our next meetings, we can just briefly go over it and see what we want to do with the different questions.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we're fine.
So Loretta wrote that, right?
Yes.
So we want to probably take the time to acknowledge that Loretta actually wrote the whole document.
She gave this to me tonight. I talked to her after the meeting the other night. The last meeting that we had when we talked about these, and she was given the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And she still had these questions, so,
Mhm.
for the board to address.
So, perfect. And that was like 6 or 7 weeks ago, because that was the last time we had an agenda meeting.
Right.
So my concern is, and you hopefully can follow the logic between my question here, is what I want to acknowledge that Loretta wrote that whole document.
Correct.
So the question really is gonna come down to E-code. Who's gonna write chapter 200? The ZRC is working on it now, but if you wanna expedite this and do it in 3 months, who is gonna write it? Okay, anything else, Bob?
No, I'm with it.
All right, cool. For myself, some stuff real quick. I know we're running a little bit late here, so I wanted to put some things in here because I think it's important that we understand that, you know, despite everything we talked about it at the state of the town, revenues continue to drop. And here's some history, and this is from the Office of Court Administration. You know, from 2008 to the end of 2013, we lost what I call a 48% drop in tickets and a 49% drop in revenue. That's a big number. It's a huge number. So the question, and what I need to set up a call, and I'll call the commander over there and them and Fonda, and I need to set up a meeting to understand why have these tickets dropped by this much and why has our revenue dropped by this much? It's a huge number, and why was it never alerted to in the past? And you can see I've also put in some, you know, the court costs and court security, but the projected revenues right now, and you can see on 2014, is the revenue, the tickets are continuing to drop. So there's a problem that, you know, myself and the board need to address with the state police. Why is such a dramatic drop from 2008 to 2014? What's the issue, and why aren't we getting tickets? Because these numbers are huge. The good news is in 2014 is we're gonna cut our services. Well, they should probably equal out about the same. Our court security we expect to drop by about 70%. So court security is going to come in about 5,000, maybe 6 total. So we expect to drop, again, 75% costs in court security, and we're also going to lose, again, approximately about the same in court benefits. And that still doesn't help us with the revenue. So we've done some great work here, cutting costs and trimming costs and becoming more efficient. But the question to the state police is, why are you not writing tickets anymore? And it started in 2008. So the existing court at the time, you know, despite everything going on and, you know, saying I need security guards and this and that, you know, revenue is dropping like a rock. I want to clarify a couple things that our judge had, our former judge had stated last year. There is no credit card machine in the court. The first of the year, we had no computers. They all walked out. Everything was missing. I think both Lou and Bob and I sat here and watched one night, or a couple of nights, that files and everything exited. So it was pretty hard. You know, we've contacted the Office of Court Administration. They say that's a highly unusual practice, highly unusual, especially since it started in November. So there's some questions that need to be asked and answered on that. The next chart is I wanted to highlight too, and I didn't get a chance at the state town meeting, but you know, we did expend more effort in our lawyers' fees last year than we anticipated. Now, 2 major areas was the sex discrimination cases, which totaled about 9,000, or a little bit north of 9,000. They were unappropriated. And the other piece was just typically planning stuff, is the Jeff Baker, Ivanello, McLean stuff, and that includes the engineering. Now, typically, when an applicant comes in, he has to pay for his services. So, in this case, you know, the board kept going with the Ivanell McLean discussion, and we kept billing the applicant, but he hasn't paid. So typically, that 14 or 15, 16,000, we would have been, you know, we would have added it to our fund equity or our savings account last year, but right now, I've asked Mike to begin researching how we're gonna collect on our debt. So I know last year we increased our fund equity or our savings accounts, if you wanna look at it that way, by 22,000, but if we had managed to bill the extra 16,000, would have been close to 50,000 we would have saved, you know, year over year. So, you know, I want again, it being as open as transparent as we're here, you know, with our funding and our financials with the town. So folks on Time Warner, you know, this is included in the minutes, and it's also on the state of town, some of the follow-up charts. We talked about the Rick Gilman, so that's a concern. We talked about Carver, and I don't think I really have anything else. We're running out of time here. So any questions for myself? Bob?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Doug?
No.
Joe?
No, Mike.
And Lou?
I'll combine.
All right. All right, let's go ahead and get started with business. Minutes approval, do I have a motion that the minutes of the town board meeting for June 10th be approved?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Lou. Mr. Doug?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Bob first, Lou second?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, thank you, Lou. Joe?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And me is a yes. Resolution passed. Organizational note, the planning board appointment of where with the resignation of Nick Moore Jr. from the planning board to take the position of code enforcement officer and building inspector, and whereas Joan Kazaz is the current planning board alternate with the most experience and with her background in comprehensive plan committee, zoning review committee, and the board of appeals review board. Therefore, the town board of the town of Princetown hereby appoints Joan Kazaz to the planning board as a regular board member to complete the term as vacated by Nick Moore for a term to expire on 12/31/17, which was Nick's term. So a motion, so Bob?
Yes.
Who's gonna be the alternate?
Actually, we probably have to appoint one. So it actually is gonna be an alternate open. So we can put out resumes for requests for resumes.
I'll second.
All right, Bob,
Did you formally resign, Mike?
you had to take the job.
Give me a letter, don't you? It's supposed to be okay.
It's supposed to be a letter.
Okay.
Okay,
That's fine, I have no problem with it.
all right.
Joan's good,
Mhm.
I have no problem with that. Just I didn't know nothing about it, I gotta get a letter to you.
Well, actually, it was on the last month's agenda that, you know, we redid your thing. It said, you know, you had to put a resignation. But it's my fault, I should have reminded you.
No problem, I'll get it to you.
Thank you, sir. It's got to actually be, just for formality, it's got to be to Sandy.
Okay.
You got to resign to Sandy. All right, Bob.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Lou.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
And Mike is a yes, passed. All right, new business, the new county highway agreement came out. Pretty much the same as last year. It covers July 1st through June 31st, sand, salt repairs, etc. Do I have a motion whereas the town of Princetown typically contracts the control of snow and ice and other repairs and maintenance services with the County of Schenectady Department of Engineering and Public Works on a yearly basis. Therefore, it is hereby resolved that upon the review and approval of the town supervisor and town attorney, the Princetown Town Board approves the Supervisor Joyce enter into the agreement with the County of Schenectady for the yearly contract for a term of July 1st, 2014, and ended on June 30th, 2015. I forgot there's only 30 days in June.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lou. Mr. Lou?
Yes.
Mr. Doug?
Yes.
Mr. Joe?
Yes.
Mr. Bob?
Yes.
Mr. Mike? Yes, passed. MBT account signers. With Judge moving on, we need to add another person on, so, do I have a motion? It's hereby resolved, the town board approves the following named persons or person from time to time holding the office of depositor be and hereby are designated as the authorized signer for general fund accounts to act on behalf of the depositor in accordance with the above resolution, Michael Joyce, Joe Jasinski.
Did we already have 2 or 3?
Right, but Lou, or not Lou, Norm was on.
Was Norm and Lou, so now you have 3?
Right.
Am I still on that then?
We could probably formally put your name in there. I would think it would stay there, but we can add it.
So moved.
So Bob, second?
I'll second
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Doug?
Yeah.
Mr. Joe?
Yes.
Mr. Lou?
it. Yes.
And Mike is a yes. Water fund claims. Town board approves claims 64 through 70 in the amount of $8,617.18.
So moved.
I'll second
Lou? Lou?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Mike is a yes. General funds claims, abstract 7. Do we have a motion that the town board approves claims 175 through 204 and a claim in the amount of $34,014.80?
So moved.
I'll second.
Lou?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Mike is a yes. General fund transfers. It's hereby resolved the town board approves the following transfers. $275 from the bookkeeper's professional services line to the bookkeeper's supply line for stipends and supplies. Transfer of $146 from town clerk equipment to the town clerk supply line of 14104 for miscellaneous. $69 from justice professional service to justice supplies for miscellaneous. $2,329.98 from contingencies to planning board attorney fees for projects. And finally, $57 from PAC to PAC trees for Earth Day tree shrubs, so apparently we didn't make any money on that.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Lou?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Joe?
Yep.
Bob?
Yes.
And Mike's a yes. So folks, I'm gonna open up to any more, open the floor up for public comment, if there's any more additional comments. So I'll open it up at 9:10.
I have one comment
Yes, sir.
concerning the E-code, and just before it's tabled, or before you make a vote on whether you're going to accept it or not accept it, is to how much money has already the town spent on it that you're going to throw away? Not the volunteers' time or anything else, but how much money has already been invested that you possibly are going to throw away before you actually need to take that into consideration.
So the answer is 10,000. It was a $15,000 project. We spread it out over 3 budgets, being very financially sound and secure, 3 budgets. We didn't, absorb it very easily.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Additional comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, our blessing south end of town, I'd just like to bring up why you're involved with that ditch on Quackenbush Road. That's been agriculture there for probably 75 years that I know of, and Quackenbushes were there for probably 100 years before that. And I'm just curious, that house that you mentioned is probably about 1946, 48. So evidently somebody put too small a pipe in there, in that road. But I'll be there.
That's cool, Marv.
No, I'll be there. I mean, it kind of upsets me. It's farmland, here you're going E-code, you're jabbing agriculture again. Every move you make, you're jabbing somebody that's trying to do ag, and the property ain't changed. It's been that way for 75 years that I know of. That's all I got to say, thank you.
Let me respond. So nobody's trying to jab anybody, you know. My job is if somebody called up and complains, I gotta go at least talk to them. At least that's my interpretation of my job.
That's county road, that's one thing of my point. You know, why you should have to be involved, but that's fine if you wanna be there or whatever.
I'm just trying to work a solution, Marv. I mean, last year,
Yeah, no,
Joe Ryan was there, you know, and he said, I'm not touching this, I'm not touching this. This poor lady, you know, I just wanna try to help a little bit. You know, I was very sensitive to whose land it was. I knew exactly whose it was.
Well,
You know,
what am I gonna do, excavate the ground? I don't quite understand.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's why,
Well,
that's why I wanna meet. That's really why I wanna meet, just like, so let's meet and let's talk. You know, instead of before it gets too ugly, let's just try to meet and talk. You know, maybe there's an easy fix for Mr. Besenfall or something. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. But anyway. And yeah, I realize it's rains a lot now, but I mean, I don't know what to say.
Well, I'd just like to ask Councilman Gray if the land has changed any from what it was in his life.
Anybody says that that's been leveled off, it's never been leveled off. Never, no dirt's ever been pushed, that's the way it's always been.
So they put.
I cut that hay when I was a kid.
And again, that may be, I'm not trying to assign blame here, but they put drains in there that weren't there, obviously. I mean, they put drains in the field.
No, there's no drains in that field that I
Yes,
know
there
of.
is. Well, again, I don't want to, Marv, believe me,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sensitive
that's
to this, I really am. But George Meade showed me, everybody down there, Mike Hickok, everybody's like, they put drains in the field. I don't know. You know, I don't know the answer. I'm not trying to make trouble. All I'm saying is we need to try to address it. Because Joe Ryan will ask to send a letter and say, next time they gotta clean the road up. All I'm saying, guys, is let's just try to work together. Let's just try to figure it out. You know, just a suggestion, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, thanks, Marv. You know, I appreciate your patience. I know it's sensitive. Believe me, I knew for a long time. Well, not for a long time, but anyway.
So you're setting up a meeting for what, 5 o'clock on Thursday?
5 or 6, I'm gonna call Rick Gilman and his mother and say, hey, look, let's just try to meet with, you know, with Besenfall, yourself, Nick, both Nick and because me and Nick Senior were there numerous times last year. I met with the county, said we even asked us, like, put a pipe across the road. He goes, Joe Ryan just went, I'm not funding that. And I can't, because you can't take the water and dump it into somebody else's property. Yeah. So Marv, I don't know the answer, but all I'm saying, let's try to work together and figure something out. That's all I'm suggesting. I know it's not town road, I know it's not, but it's a senior citizen. I would do the same if it was you guys and you guys came to me and said, Mike, I got a problem, can you help? Yeah, I'm gonna try to help. I'm sorry, I lost track of where I was. Oh, sorry. So I'll try to set that up, if it's okay, Marv. I mean, if it's not convenient for you, you know, I'll try to work at a different time. All right, any other open floor comments?
Just give me a call, let me know.
Yeah, if I can grab your number, you probably got one, right? I don't know if Joe, you got his number. Marv's number? You phone book, Marv?
Yeah, I got his number.
All right.
I got his number.
I think Barry's got my number now.
355-1800.
Mike, I gotta switch batteries. Okay, thank you.
All right, we're back. So if there's no additional public comment, I'd like to catch up with you, maybe, it's actually probably this weekend. It's probably, I don't know if you're busy sometime.
I'll be on Sunday.
Okay. I'm sprinting here, so it's gonna be a sprint, but I will call you. Okay, if there's no additional comment, I'm gonna close the floor. And folks, we have to go into executive session.
Yeah, I got one more thing, so I can bring it up. We had another truck come in, knocked the concrete pillar over into the flower bed. I guess the trailer almost tipped over. I've asked Nick, and he's gonna come over with, I wanted to just pull it back out into the road. He's gonna come over with his backhoe, push it out farther, because we're only gonna end up knocking this gazebo down again. These guys just, I even know if I talked to the state police about it, they say they haven't seen anything happen over there. You know, if they do, they will certainly stop them and give them a ticket, but, you know, in the middle of the night, they're out on the road, so, and this is when this seems to happen.
I sat here one day and watched it, same thing, guy, huge trailer, I'm not sure how big it was, but, and then I watched a state trooper pull out. He saw him. He's actually tried to back down and back into our driveway, then said, oh, I'm not gonna be able to do that. And he ended up going on the lawn and got around the stuff, but, anyway, okay. Thank you, sir. All right, anything else, guys? All right. Folks, thanks. Captain, oh, sorry, yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Motion to go into executive session, discuss pending legal action.
I'll second it.
All in favor? So Bob and then Lou?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.